Hello, guys. Welcome back to Sweet and Sour Soccer. We hope you had an amazing Christmas. And for you Everton fans, it wasn't the best Boxing Day, or was it? Although we are Wolves fans, I promise you we're not here to gloat. We're actually here to talk about Frank Lampard. And before I jump into it, guys, do me a favour, like the video and subscribe if you are new here. Scott, I just want to say before we jump in, we've got quite a good relationship with Everton fans on this channel. They've always
Yeah,
been quite welcoming to us, really nice to us. So I do want to make it clear, I don't want to annoy any of them. We aren't saying Lampard should go. If you are watching this and you're Lampard in, we aren't saying he should go. We're just presenting the idea because from what we've seen online, which surprised me because I thought he was still held in, pretty good stead. I thought he was okay. But you brought it to my attention that a lot of the fan base has turned.
they have, and I think what's interesting, and I think this is why we said, why don't we just have a little bit of a discussion of this, and maybe towards the end of the video, we might actually reach a conclusion ourselves, because I could
Mm.
see two sides of it. I really can, and I think Everton is such, and we've spoke about Everton quite a bit on this channel. It's such a hard thing to unpack because there isn't just one bad thing going wrong with the club. There is like a few several things. Especially a year ago that you could pick out. And I think they have started to solve those problems, but there's a lot to unpack. And I think it always is going to come back to obviously the financial fair play that they did put themselves under. For example, it spoke about quite a lot. $500 million spent, and you kind of go through that squad now and you go, where is that $500 million gone?
Well,
Because
it is criminal. I had a look at the squad and I'm seeing, one of their best players this season is a player on loan from us, Connor Cody, and we're fighting relegation, and he's been one of their best players. Touching on that, Scott, as well, and I was going to mention this later, but as we're talking about it, Iwobi, a player that has been ridiculed by me and most general football fans, no matter who you support, for the last 4 or 5 years, meant to be the next big thing, never quite worked out. He's got 5 assists this season. 5. Do you know second only has one? And there's actually 4 players that has 1 assist. Connor Cody's one of them, but also Jordan Pickford. The big hitters aren't doing it for Everton. When your goalkeeper's your second highest assist maker, Connor Cody's in there. Connor Cody's also got a goal. There's only one player with 2 goals and one player with 3, which is Anthony Gordon. As you mentioned, you look around that squad and you think, where's that 500 million?
And I think it's interesting as well because obviously you mentioned there Awaby. I don't think he had a great game yesterday. I must admit. Sorry, Everton fans. There was a couple of times where I found myself laughing at the fact of some of the stuff he did. He had a couple of shots which just went nowhere near the goal, and he went
He's
back.
been one of their best players this season with
He has
Gordon by a
been.
long way.
And
A long
he's done
way.
a Joe
Yeah.
Linton, hasn't he? He's reinvented himself in that centre
Yeah.
mid position, and it seems to have worked with him. I think what's interesting though is, as you say, not many goals scored. Even after yesterday, just the 12 goals scored in the league this season, and I think that's very, you look at the players that left last season. It's always going to come down to Richarlison, the fact that he left, and once again, Everton feel they put a lot of trust in Calvert-Lewin to come back and be that main striker. And unfortunately, once again, injury, his record has held up. He's been out of it for the vast part of the season. And to be honest, when he did come back for a short amount of time, I think before the World Cup break, he nicked 1 or 2 goals, didn't he, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep. Yep. You think about Calvert-Lewin, obviously with Richarlison left. Gordon is such a young guy, and he's got all the it seems like the weight of the club on his shoulders at the moment, along with maybe players like Cody, who isn't even really one of their players, you'd say, full time. Where does Frank take it from here? Because it's 1 draw in their last 5 games, 4 in the league, and one of the defeats was a 4-1 loss in the League Cup to Bournemouth, which horrible. And the very next game, they lost 3-0 to them in the league. It's 1 draw in the last 5. They've conceded 11 goals in their last 4, and they've only scored 2. They play a 4-3-3. We know Frank doesn't want to play that way.
Yeah.
Has he just got to bite the bullet and just play the likes of Cody, Patterson, whether it's Holgate, throw Mina in there as well? Because Mina only played yesterday because of Cody's absent because it was Wolves, obviously. Will he get sacked by sticking to his laurels, or is it okay to change your mind and say, do you know what? I haven't got the squad, so do you know what? I'll change things, or does it make him look weak?
And I think this is where it comes down to you wonder about the experience of Frank, and this is why maybe there's a growing contingency of Everton fans wanting him gone because
Yeah,
he's still very early in his managerial career. If you're being completely honest, he did a decent job with Derby. He then went to Chelsea more because of who he is, and obviously they had the transfer embargo, and then he's found himself in another Premier League job. For me, he's still
yeah,
very early in his career to be doing this. It's not like an Arteta who had years learning under Guardiola and then has found himself obviously taking over a team like Arsenal. And it's even harder when it's a team that is going through an immense period of change. Now, one of the things I found interesting about, if we go back to the game yesterday, was it almost felt like to me that Frank Lampard had kind of instructed the team, let's just focus on holding out the result. If you think back to the game, and the Everton fans maybe rightly should so, there was about a minute and a half to go, and Everton were quite content passing the ball around the back, keeping it. They've then gone for it. And that's then transpired into a counter-attack with a bit of bad luck, because let's be honest, I think they defended well. They did exactly what they should have in terms of making Traore go out wide and put a ball in. And let's face it, that ball was terrible. And it's only
yeah,
because it deflected off an Everton player that it found the feet of Aït-Nouri. So there's a lot of circumstances there which made it,
yeah.
into that 2-1 defeat. But one thing I will say is you just wonder whether Lampard now just needs to start thinking, yes, I want to play this way. I've got January coming up. Maybe for a couple of games, let's just focus on doing the basics. Let's go back to the basics, go defensive, and let's
Well,
get a couple of points on the board. Just at least turn this, we're talking 3 back-to-back defeats in the league. We're talking a shameful loss against Bournemouth. Should
yeah.
he now just revert back to playing like a 5 or something and very defensive?
Well, you didn't know I was going to come on to this. Honestly,
Oh,
guys, this isn't
it is really
scripted.
going to make me look an idiot.
No, 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 no. You've actually brought us onto a very good point. I can imagine Everton fans watching this are probably either laughing or just hiding behind their sofas because they'll probably know their next 4 fixtures. And it's a nice little segue you brought in there. So their next game is on Saturday, and it's Man City away.
City, yeah.
Who do they play after that? Brighton. Who they got after that? Away at Old Trafford. And then they have got an 8-day rest, and then they've got Southampton at home. Scott, that is, I mean, you can't write this kind of stuff. You've come back from a World Cup, 6 weeks off, which Everton fans have been joking about loving. You lose to Wolves in one of the worst manners ever. It's a shithouse result. We didn't deserve the win. I think a draw was fair. You lose to Wolves, Man City, Brighton, United. Let's say they get no points, and I don't think we're being harsh by saying that. Let's say they get no point, or maybe one, maybe they get a draw. If they lose to Southampton, who I think are down anyway, that's when I'm thinking, do you know what? Everton are gone. If they lose the next 3, and then that Southampton game, that's a 6-pointer.
That is going to be a massive one. And I think it makes me think even more here. Frank should do is just keep that team tight. Let's focus on not conceding. That's what I'd do if I was him. Because they haven't got the best defensive record, actually. When you look at it, only 19 goals conceded. And I've got the Premier League table up. I'm going up there. And there's teams even sat much higher up the table, as high as Europe, that have conceded a lot more.
This is the thing about stats, because I told you a few minutes ago, they've conceded 11 in their last 4 games. But the first 7 or 8 games of the season, Cody and, Mikhaelenko and all these players, they were keeping clean sheets. They were getting good FPL points. Cody got a goal. He had an assist. He was keeping 3 or 4 clean sheets. Everton weren't conceding, but now they really are. Does he go to a 5? Does he throw Mina in there with Cody? Holgate, Patterson, whoever it is?
Well, I would. I'd honestly go so defensive that, I don't think any Everton fan's going to maybe begrudge, trying to get a point against City, trying to get a point maybe against United, maybe Brighton. You see how you start off a bit defensive, see how the game goes, because see how Brighton are playing. And you could do the same for United, because United have very on and off days as well. I would focus on doing that. I think getting 1 point on the board against difficult teams is a lot better than 0. And it might just help build that confidence and remind them that, because it's the same players, so there can be a unit that can defend well. We know that doesn't just change. We know that is possible. So if I was Frank, that's what I'd be focusing on. And, we're talking about whether Frank should go. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna go until maybe at least a couple of months ago, because surely, James, if they did it now, won't that just show another weak point by the board, another weakness of the board? Doing it a game or two after you've just had a month break. I mean, we've seen what Wolves did, who they played yesterday. They've brought in a new man in Lopetegui. They've managed to, we've managed to obviously change things. He's had a month with the team. Surely, if Everton did it now, that would show such a lack of improvement from a board that they've been so critical of. It was only about a year ago, wasn't it? Obviously, there was protests against the board. I remember over, around the time Lampard actually came in. So, I don't know if they can do it at the moment, because I just think it would show such a weakness in the board.
And don't forget, the year before that, we did a video on it when we were very early in the channel. We did a video on the protests outside Rafa Benitez's home when they signed him. So year upon year, you do have to see, in a, off screen, I'd probably be making fun of Everton, because that's what football fans do. We make fun of every club. But, you've got to feel sorry for Everton fans, because they are a big club and they just don't really deserve what's going on right now. And then are they going into their first ever season in their new stadium in the Championship? I mean, I really don't know. You mentioned, we'll try and finish it in a moment, guys. I just want to come back to one thing you said about, does he have the experience, the know-how, or even the bottle to actually start changing things right now? That was Lopetegui's first ever Premier League game. What did he do towards the end of the game? He went from a 4 to a 5. He brought on Totti, who got booked in the first 15, 20 seconds. And God. But he shored it up. He thought, right, I haven't had long with the team. We're hanging on a little bit here, because Everton were coming. They were coming. He said, I'm going to throw on a central midfielder. He threw on Núñez. We're just going to shore it up. We'll take a draw. We got a bit of luck and got the goal. Is that where Frank's inexperience, because even though Lopetegui's never been in the Premier League, he's been at Spain, Real Madrid, Sevilla, he knows the game. Is that ultimately going to be Frank's downfall? Maybe either the lack of experience of what to do, or maybe he knows what he's got to do, but he's just scared of getting booed if he comes out to a 5, makes too early changes. Is it the lack of experience or the lack of courage? What will be his problem, do you think?
I think it's going to be the lack of experience. I still think there's maybe times in game management where I've watched Lampard and thought, are you really changing that much? And I think also that you have got to look at the depth of the squad. I mean, I know that Cannon was brought on. I know that he's a young player who is, kind of a lot of it is expected of him in the future. But this is the Premier League, and I said it myself when I watched for Wolves, for example. We have the same situation that we're currently starting a young Joe Hodge, who just didn't look at the level, but is going to be a great prospect for the future. I think it's a lot for Frank, because you look at players you can bring off from the bench. If I compare the two teams again, Adama, Aït-Nouri, Núñez were the players that we could bring off from the bench. You look over to Everton. There wasn't that much he could do to change the game, in all honesty, when you look at that bench. So we've seen different things as well. We've seen that potentially, I reported on it just a week ago, that Frank's going to be given this war chest, it was described as. I've seen other Everton fans maybe point out, rightly so, we've still got FFP, so where's this war chest coming from? There seems a lot of confusion around the club. There really does. And I think, the other problem you're going to have, especially as we go into January, is not just if you get rid of Frank, it's who's actually going to be available to come in that's going to make an instant change, because you don't want to, you don't want to go to the dinosaurs of football anymore. What are you going to do? Try and call up someone like Allardyce, like, you know what I mean?
It's probably going to be Big Dunk, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
what the Everton fans say. That I think that would be his, if he did come in, it would be his third interim takeover in less than 2 years. He did it after um, Rafa, before Frank, and he did it 3 years ago, 4 years ago as well. I think it was no 2 years ago before Ancelotti. Um, Scott, two questions. One, does Lampard last the season? And two, do they go down regardless?
I don't think he will last the season. I just have a funny feeling it won't be yet. I think it could be maybe Feb time. Or it could even
Too
be
late by then.
it could even be that after that tough. I just have a feeling he's not going to last the season, but I think the Everton owners will give him some more time. I think it's too early to say that they go down regardless. I still fancy the likes of Bournemouth to drop off. I know that they had a decent start, but they've been quite terrible after that that injection they had. Southampton, things look really worrying there. I think you can't really decide that until the Jan transfer window's done, in my opinion.
It's the one. Yeah, that when it comes February 1st, that's where you start to look at it and go, right, these are the 5 or 6 teams that
Yeah.
are fighting it. I'm not sure if they'll go down, but what I will say, they are genuinely in a fight. It's not a joke at this point. Just like last season, Forest, Southampton, Wolves, Everton, Leeds, Bournemouth. Yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We know it's horrible. Wolves have been bottom for most of this season, so genuinely, we can say and mean it. We know how you feel. Do us a favor, like the video if you're still here. Scott, I'm doing your job. You do the outros. Take
Oh
over.
yeah, it's been that long since we've done a video together. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, hit that like button, subscribe. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest transfers. There'll be more videos like this around Everton as well, and general Premier League stuff. So like, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Goodbye.